Okay, so today that we are going to discuss it is regarding competition law. We are going to start a series of competition law in which we will be covering each and every topic related to competition law. Right? So it will be like there will be many videos that will be uploaded regarding this competition law, and each and every videos will be like of 20-30 minutes. All right, so this is the first video regarding competition regulation, competition law. So in this video I'm going to deal with the history of competition law, means how this competition law came, or what was the origin of this competition law. So this is we are going to study, or we are going to discuss in this video. So if you see competition law, first of all let's understand what is the meaning of competition. Competition is there in every sphere of our life. In every sphere of life we do have competition, right? It is in every field. It can be, if you talk about your you are a student. As a student you face many competition, right? If you're in any industry, if you're at a workplace, there you face competition, right? And what is a competition? You want to go ahead of the others, right? This is a competition. This is something you strive for, some excellence or some better things, right? That is a competition. And why do you strive for? Because you want to be ahead of others, right? If we talk about in market terms, if it is a market, if it's economic terms, if we talk about competition, what it is in market, what happens? The sellers, they attracts the buyers, right? The sellers, they attract the buyers just for what? For increasing their benefit or sales, or increasing their market share, right? So simply, if you talk about competition in market or competition law, the competition law is dealing with this economic competition. It's not dealing with our competition, with an individual's competition, right? Or with a student's competition, I can say. But it is dealing with the market's competition. Competition law deals with the market's competition, right? And what is a competition in the market? Where the seller is trying. Competition is good. Competition is good for an economy. And competition means what the sellers, they, okay, it strive for the buyer's patronage. For what? Why they attract the buyers? Just to increase their sales or increase their market shares, right? And increase their profits. So for this they attract the buyers. So this is the meaning of competition. And if you talk about this competition, there are two schools of thoughts that we have regarding this competition law. In these two schools of thought, first one is that there should be free competition. Free and unfettered competition should be there, right? And if it is free and unfettered competition that we are talking about, so free and unfettered competition would simply mean that there should not be any intervention by any authority, by any government, right? It should be regulated by the market force. It means this only, right? But second school of thought says that there should be free competition but with regulations. And what it is regulation means there will be regulation so as to prevent anti-competitive activities, right? There will be free competition will be free, competition will be regulated by the market forces, right? But there will be regulations. Regulation for what? Regulation to prevent someone from attempting anti-competitive practices, right? So this is, we talk about two school of thoughts. One is what? That there is free competition, there is no regulation, even preventing the anti-competitive activities. For that also we do not have any regulation. That is first school of thought. Second school of thought says that there is competition, there is free competition but with regulations. And regulations, why the regulations are made? That is for preventing the anti-competitive activities. And mostly this second school of thought is followed in majority of the jurisdictions all over the world. So that's why if you see here, we find that there are two schools of thought, and second school of thought is the most prevalent one. Okay, then if you talk about the history, how what we get to know that what is the meaning of the competition, and there are two school of thoughts regarding this. Then if you talk about the history, what is the history or how it evolved, we talk about not the ancient one, we will talk about the modern history or modern development in the modern era of the development of competition law in the modern era. We are going to deal with it. So if you see the development of this competition law, it started with the Sherman Act in USA. So there was for the first time an act was made regarding the competition, or regarding the regulation, regulating the competition. For that, we had our first act, that was Sherman Antitrust Act, and it was in the USA. It was made for the first time. So Sherman Antitrust Act 1890, this was developed in 1890, this was enacted in 1890. If you see what was the need of why this USA felt that there should be a antitrust act, or there should be a competition regulation. If you see during that time, during this early 19th century, if you see in USA, the USA economy was shifting from agrarian to the industrial one, and there were new industries that were coming. And these industries, because there was free market, right, laissez-faire policy was being followed, so free market was there, and they started taking the advantage of this free market economy. And what they did, they simply this instead of doing competition, they started cooperating. So what they did, they started forming trusts. What do you mean by trust? Trust simply means that where, like, there will be many companies, the shareholders, the stock owners, right, they will come together, and what they will do, they will give the control of their stock to some trustee, right, and that trustee is going to give them the profits like as shareholder, right. So simply you are giving a stock, you are giving your control of your stock to some other person, right. And when many stock owners, they come together and they give their give the control of their stocks to some trustee, right, in the hands of a trustee, then that is what that is taken as a trust. So simple kya ho raha hai, what happens, that is, there are many companies, they are coming together. And the companies, if you see what are these companies, or which type of companies these companies are, like, these are the major producers in their field, right. And they want to control the price. So what they do, they come together, they just form a trust, and they control the price, and they control the production, right. This was happening there in the USA. And at that time, if you see, there was Standard Oil Trust, that was there, and most famous trust that was there at that time. In this, if you see, there was 77 companies that came together to form this trust, and they give their give the control of their stocks to 9 trustees. So 77 companies give the control of their stocks to the 9 trustees. So a trust was formed, right. And that's why at that time, if you see, if there will be one company, a one big company, you can say trust as a one big company. If this will be there, what will happen, what it will cause, it will just cause one thing, that these trusts will be regulating what, they will be regulating the price, right. They will be regulating the production. What will happen, it will adversely affect the population, right. Population will be adversely affected. And if it is so, then the people there, the public there in the USA felt aggrieved of these trusts, and that's why protest started there in USA against these trusts, because after all, this prices were touching the sky. So that's why they protested, and there the law was made, an act was made, that was Sherman Antitrust Act 1890 during that time. So if you see, it was made in 1890, but it was not implemented for 10 years, right. But when President Theodore Roosevelt came into power in 1901, he's also known as the trust buster man, right. So what he started doing, he started filing suits against these trusts under this Sherman Antitrust Act. So if you see, this Sherman Antitrust Act that was formed in 1890, what it was having many sections, and there are two main sections that it includes, section 1 and section 2. Section 1 simply says that if there is any trust, if there is any contract or combination in the form of trust, right, or if there is any conspiracy for what, for restraining the trade, or in restraint of trade, if there is any trust formed, then that trust will be taken as, or will be treated as, illegal. So simple, if you see section 1 of this Sherman Antitrust Act 1890 says that if any trust is formed, right, in restraint of trade, if the trust restricts the trade, then that trust is illegal. All right, and then penalty is also provided for that trust. Penalty is prescribed there in section 1, that if anyone forms the trust in restraint of trade, that is illegal, plus he will be penalized. All right, and if you see, there is section 2. Section 2 says if any person attempts to monopolizes or attempts to monopolize the trade or commerce, his trade or commerce, if he does so, it will be treated as a felony. Felony means what? As a grievous offense, like he has committed a murder, right, and he will be punished. Penalty is prescribed there. Simple. First one is talking about formation of trust is illegal. Second one is saying that if any person tries to monopolize or attempts or monopolizes his trade or commerce, then it will be treated as a felony, a grievous offense, right, and so he will be penalized. These are the two sections. And if you see 1901, Theodore Roosevelt, he started filing cases against many trusts and this Standard Oil Company issues there, and in 1911 this Standard Oil Company was broken into 33 companies, right, and this trust was busted. That's why this Theodore Roosevelt is known as trust buster. Okay, then if you see in 1914, there was another act that was formed in USA itself. It was Clayton Act, Clayton, Clayton Act 1914. This act was dealing with competition only, but it was a supplement to the Sherman Antitrust Act, right? If you see, Sherman Act was talking about two things: monopolization, and first one was it was regarding the trusts, right? But if you talk about this Clayton Act, it included many other things, like it regulated the tying arrangements. Tying arrangements means what? When there is an agreement where you say that you will have to buy another product if you want to buy this one product, right? You tie two products. So this is called tying arrangement. Tying arrangement is not in itself an offense or illegal or wrong, but it is to be regulated. It may lead to wrong. All right, so that's why what happens in this Clayton Act, it regulated tying arrangements, the exclusive dealing arrangement means what? Where the supplier or where the manufacturer agrees with the retailer or any other person that he will be supplying his products to him only. Exclusive dealing will be there. I'll not be supplying to any other person. So this is called exclusive dealing arrangement. So regulation regarding that was made in Clayton Act. It was regulated. Plus mergers and acquisitions were regulated. Means there can be mergers, there can be acquisitions, but it should not be the one which tries to monopolize, right? It should not lead to monopolization, right? So that's why mergers and acquisitions were also regulated by Clayton Act. So Clayton Act was a supplement to this Sherman Antitrust Act. It was formed in 1914. After that, we had that is a Federal Trade Commission Act of 1914, and Federal Trade Commission Act of 1914. If you see, this created a body, that is a Federal Trade Commission, and its main task was to enforce the consumer protection laws and antitrust laws. So if you see, it banned the horizontal and vertical arrangements, right? And the main task of this was to enforcement agency. So Federal Trade Commission was an enforcement agency, and it was enforcing what? The consumer protection laws and antitrust laws, right? Then if you see, there is after this also, these three acts were the main in the history of the competition law in USA. But after that also, if you see, there was Robinson-Patman Act 1936 that was passed, right? There was Hart-Scott-Rodino Antitrust Improvements Act 1976. This was also passed. These were just like making it specific, specifying many things, right? Okay, so this was the history, that how this competition rule or competition regulations started. All right, it started from USA. Then if you see, if you talk about European Union, in European Union it was in 1957 where European Economic Community was formed, right? European Economic Community was there, and its main task was just to regulate the economy, right? So it was like acting as a competition regulation in Europe. Then if you see, if you talk about UK, it was very late that they formed or they had any competition law. It was in 1998 they had their first competition law, right? Competition Act 1998, and there is another act that was made, Enterprises Act 2002 in UK. So this was all about the history of competition law in the world, that how it started, from where it started. Right, but and after that, if you talk about this competition law is there in many jurisdictions, but it is like it is having nomenclature. It is having a different nomenclatures in different jurisdictions. If you talk about, means it is named by different names. It is called by different names if you see in different jurisdictions. For example, we just studied in USA it is called as antitrust law, right? Somewhere like in China it is called as anti-monopoly law, right? And majority of the jurisdictions they use the word competition. Take a competition law. So this was the global history. In our next lecture or in our next video, we will be discussing that how it came into India and how it developed in India. Okay, thank you.